You know, one of the things I enjoy most about studying the Bible is learning about characters and how there's something about their characters that I can relate to. And the one person that stands out in my mind is the Apostle Peter. When I think about Peter, I think about a man who is very impetuous, simply meaning that, he would act very quickly on what he was feeling or thinking, sometimes even to his own hurt. Also, one of the things that amazed me about Peter was how he had this confidence in himself that was undue. He didn't realize it, and there were times that Jesus would work with him to help him with it. An example of this would be in Matthew 26, in verse 31, where Jesus made it clear that a time was going to come where he says, all of you are going to be offended of me, and you are going to forsake me. But then by the time you go down to verse 33, here goes that overconfident Peter. And Peter eventually says, though they may all forsake you, I will never forsake you. Now, not only was Peter confident or overly confident, because here he is, he's making it clear everybody else is going to turn away from God, but he won't. That's a pretty high opinion of yourself. But in addition to that, he just corrected Jesus himself, the one who called himself the truth. And he tried to show Jesus the truth, that he wasn't speaking the truth. Jesus said, all of you are going to forsake me. He was correcting Jesus and saying, they may, but I won't. In these examples, we see that Peter had a confidence about himself that was undue. In like manner, I can look at my own life and I can remember many a times that I had a confidence in myself that was undue. A time where I just thought a little bit more of myself than I should have. I may have had good intentions in what I was proclaiming about myself, but in the end, it was still the seed of self-exaltation. Well, here it is that by the time you get later on in the Bible story, we know in that same Matthew chapter 26 that finally a day comes where Jesus is taken away. Peter does forsake him, and even worse is when the people came to him, not once and not twice, but 3 times he denied his Lord. And he did it, and he wept bitterly about it. Well, here it is. Peter finally came in contact with his own true self. Peter sees himself for who he is, a man that had too much confidence in himself rather than putting our confidence in God. It is in 1 John chapter 5 and verse 14 that it says, and this is the confidence that we have in him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. Our confidence was never to be in ourselves, but our confidence was to be in him and what he can do in us and through us for his glory. Well, the time finally comes where after the resurrection, Jesus comes to Peter. And Jesus says in John 21, verses 15 through 17, Jesus first starts his statement to Peter by saying, Peter, lovest thou me more than these? It's almost like it's a little reminder of what he said earlier in Matthew 26, when he said, though they all may forsake you, I won't. And now Peter, possessed with the spirit of humility, he says, Lord, you know that I love you. And then he asks the question again, and Peter answers, Lord, you know that I love you. He asks a third time, and Peter's heart is grieved. But then, once again, Peter says, I love you. And every single time that Peter asserted his love for God, Jesus said, go and feed my sheep. Jesus reinstated Peter back into his position, but this time now, the Peter who once was at times manipulated by the enemy and allowing himself to get caught up in himself, this same Peter is now one of the leaders of the new Christian church. This Peter is an individual who once even Jesus said, get thee behind me, Satan, is now filled with the Holy Spirit, the early rain, to the point that he's now proclaiming the words of God with boldness. It is this Peter that gives me courage that even though I'm a man that has battled and continues to battle with this issue of self-exaltation, this issue of overconfidence in what my abilities can do, I am thankful that when I look to the example of this wonderful New Testament character, the Apostle Peter, I see a man who also battled with those things, but in the end, through the power of the Holy Spirit, Jesus was able to get victory in his life. What is Jesus communicating to me? He's saying, son, remember this. Let a man take heed when he thinks he stands, lest he falls. And remember, you can do all things, even remain faithful, even lose confidence in self, and maintain confidence in God when it's through the strength of Jesus that will help me along the way. And that is the lesson that I get from this amazing man, the Apostle Peter.